Welcome to It's Upgrade Season, the only place to get raw and unfiltered advice on how to get your shit together 1 week at a time. I'm your host, Alexandria, and join me every Monday for the upgrade and every Friday for the wind down, where I'm going to be answering your dilemmas. Small shifts, huge upgrades. Let's fucking do this. Well, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
I was saying as well, I want this to just be like a chat between friends. I met you in CEO Mama, which is the amazing motherhood mastermind we're part of. And I kind of wanted to begin there, actually. So something I really noticed about you is that you don't share a lot of your personal life, your daughter, your relationship, your home. This stuff remains really sacred for you. And I think that's a rarity. I think a lot of these spiritual businesses are kind of built upon a personal brand and sharing a lot of you personally. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to know, was that an intentional decision? Was that just something that played out for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is funny that it's more rare. You know, it's funny because we didn't have social media in the same way years ago. So it just wasn't as normal as it is now to just share so much with people that we don't know. I think that it did not feel like it used to be a big deal, especially when my community was a little bit smaller. But I think as it grew and as I really started to build a life with my husband, I think that we set an intention, and it was led by him, around just really getting clear on the areas of our life that felt really sacred, you know, and that involved him and our daughter and our home. And so I think that I'm always navigating it because people want to know things. I remember when my daughter was born, everyone's like, will you share photos? Will you share all those things? And I want to. I'm like, she's so cute. You know, I want to share. And also, you know, we drew that boundary. And I also think that with the work that I do, it's like people come because they do resonate with the way that I share human design. But also our vision is really to have the business be so beyond me. And so I think that that's also been an important intention, is that it's really around the human design work and also really allowing it to transcend kind of me. And so it's been interesting. I think it hasn't always been easy, but I think that I'm always kind of towing the line of how to share the things I'm learning in my life with also keeping boundaries around the people in my life. And, you know, with my daughter, she's young and I don't know what she's going to want as she grows older, you know? So I think that it's been important for us to kind of let that evolve as it does. And the internet's a weird place. And I would say my experience has been 99.9% really, really positive, but I've definitely had the 0.1% of scary things happen. And so I think also, you know, just being really conscious of that.
And when you say scary things, is this
just weird messages with people, just, you know, threatening weird things. I know. It's honestly happened once when I say 0.1. So it's just I remember that moment was so confronting where I was just oh, wow. It's just, we share so much and we don't always realize who's watching and who's listening. And I have loved the opportunity online to connect with so many people. And it's been, like I said, so positive. And also inevitably there are going to be some non-positive experiences, you know? So totally. I think that I'm just aware of that. So I don't know. I mean, what are your feelings about sharing? What is your relationship to it?
I feel pretty open.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty open book, but I also notice and just really tune into myself where my edges feel like they are. And it's strange. I am happy to share my son, which is, I have a lot of friends who aren't as well. So I really kind of see and feel into both sides. And I'm happy to share him, and I've noticed naturally as he's getting a little bit older, he's 10 months now, as he's growing into his personality, I kind of don't want to share things as much. I'll share little snippets here and there, or if there's a moment between him and my husband, Jake, and things like that. If it feels natural for me to share it, I will.
Yeah.
But there's been a couple of times I've taken a photo or a video and I've gone to upload it and I've deleted it. I'd be no, I don't want that to go up. That's a moment for me. And it's interesting what you were saying then about protecting your peace more, because I mean, the internet's a scary place. I had an incident last year. I've never spoken about this before, but someone came to one of my in-person events and sat through a full day event basically to tell me that she hated me at the end of it.
Oh my God.
I kid you not. And I was maybe 6 months postpartum at this point, which is a fucking crazy place to be.
Yeah.
As I'm discovering every single day. And it was a real moment for me of realizing I have this beautiful family, this beautiful, peaceful little bubble of love. I have to protect that. I can't just be so accessible anymore. I can't just show parts of my life or just be accessible in the way that I used to be. So.
Yeah, it is true. I do feel like in starting a family, it feels like it's become even more precious. And like, I don't remember the quote, but it's like the way that you make something sacred is to just like draw a circle around it and like call it sacred. And it's just like some boundary. But I also will say that I think what's been valuable for me is just whenever I'm going to share something, just asking why. Because I would often share things and it was like, but why? Like for some weird dopamine hit, like do I genuinely feel like this is the right thing to share? And so I feel like I just now stop and always ask myself that question. I think similar to your experiences where it's like, oh, I actually don't feel like I need to share this. You know, it's different for everyone. There's obviously no one right way, but I think it has felt really good to kind of create that boundary for now. And we'll see how that evolves.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
So I'm visualizing you having this meeting with your husband.
Okay.
You're sitting down, you're talking about the different boundaries.
Yeah.
I need context. So you're a projector.
Yeah.
What human design is your husband?
He's a generator.
He's a generator, okay.
Yeah.
And what I'm really interested about, and are you happy to share what your human design of your daughter is? Or?
Yeah, she's a manifesting generator.
Okay, so she's, wow, you got a whole...
I know, and I grew up in a household of 2 manifestors and 2 projectors, and so I like know generator energy, and now it's all around.
I love this. So this is what I want to talk to you about a little bit, because I feel like human design has definitely become more mainstream. People are more aware. I feel like I don't get as many weird looks now where I'm like, what's your design when I'm talking to people?
Totally.
People tend to know. But I feel like something that maybe isn't spoken about as much is how those designs interact with each other.
Yeah.
So being in that family dynamic as a projector, and you've got this manifest generator, how do you navigate those dynamics and how do those relationships play out?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been so helpful to know because my design is opposite my husband's in almost every single way and definitely opposite my daughter's now. And so I have no expectation that they'll be like me.
Yeah.
And I have learned to not try to be like them. And so I think with my husband, what is your husband's design, his type?
So I don't have his birth
You don't know.
time, but he is a projector, I'm pretty sure, because I went through different parts of the day and it all seemed to be projector.
Amazing. Okay, cool. So I would say with my partner, as a generator, he has so much amazing stamina and capacity and honestly can just handle a lot. And so I have noticed that it's really tempting to kind of rely on him to handle a lot of things because he just is so capable. And I think learning as human design has been such a reminder for me that like as much as he can do, it's so important to just like really support him in doing the things that he really loves and just like create that space wherever I can because that benefits all of us.
Yeah.
And so I definitely find myself relying on him so much as a generator because he just can do so much. So that's been a big, big lesson for me. I think in our relationship, it's also really changed our communication. You know, for generators, they really respond well to specific questions.
Okay.
Like when you ask them, like, where do you want to go? They can often be like, I don't know, so many options. Whereas if you ask, like, do you want to go here? It's often a very clear yes or no. And so that simple shift has been so different where it's like, I'll be like, where do you want to go? He's like, I don't know. Give me options. I'm like, right. Okay. Do you want to go here, here, or here? And he just knows.
Yeah.
And I think another really, really big lesson in our relationship is that there's a piece of our design that comes from our centers that speaks to where we impact others and also where we're impacted. And so my partner, similar to you, is super empathic and he basically takes in and amplifies other people's emotions and feels them very deeply. Whereas I'm not empathic, but my emotions pour out of me. And so I kind of set the emotional tone of my space. And so understanding that dynamic has been so helpful because he'll be like, Erin, like you're really going through an emotional wave, like do your thing, but also like I'm going to give you space to be in it. And like, I'll just see you on the other side.
Yeah.
And that's been so helpful because I think in the past I would try to figure out why I was feeling a certain way. Like it would become like about things that just didn't even matter. And so I think giving myself space to just feel the feelings and also knowing how attuned he is to my own feelings has been so useful. So I think it just brought a lot of compassion and understanding into the relationship. And we just take so much less personally because of it.
I love the practical tools there as well. I think when you're in a marriage, the practical tools are sometimes the things that save you the most.
Absolutely.
And just like knowing, because like it would annoy me if I was asking a question and I constantly just got an I don't know.
Totally.
But if I can take responsibility and know, oh, actually, they respond better when I give them options.
Totally.
That helps everyone out.
It's so simple, you know, and it can lead to so much frustration because like when they're not asked in the right way, it's like people can be frustrated because they don't know, but they're like, it's not that I don't know, I'm just not being asked in a proper way.
Yeah.
And so I think human design gives us so many specific tools to know how to best communicate, engage with, make decisions together in a way that just is so much more in flow and so much more harmonious.
I love this.
Yeah.
And you know your daughter's design. So I had a real back and forth on this.
Yeah.
So when my son was born, my friends sent me his astrology chart straight away.
Yeah.
They were like, this is the kind of friends I have. They
Yeah.
were like, here's his chart.
Yeah.
Like literally just given birth.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to look at it.
Yeah.
I knew that he was a Pisces.
Yeah.
My mum's a Pisces. I knew it's very creative energy. I'm a Capricorn.
Yeah.
I have a lot of creativity as well, but I also like to get shit done.
You have
So
the creative channel here, so yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. And when I saw that, I was like, I feel like human design so much is like an self-acceptance piece.
Totally.
It's so about self-acceptance, but I didn't want to see his chart because I was like, I want you to grow up and be whoever you're going to be. I don't want to feel like I'm projecting onto you certain things. But actually going through the process of prepping for this conversation, I pulled up his chart.
Oh my God, what is he?
So he's a manifester.
Woohoo!
And I actually saw it in a new light, and I'm really curious on your take on this. In fact, I want to hear your take first.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts, beliefs around knowing your child's chart and how that helps you navigate your relationship with your child?
Yeah, great question. Two pieces. I would say before I had a child, I think that I saw parenting as one of the most powerful applications of human design because so often kids are expressing their design so purely when they're young, and then they kind of get conditioned out of it because they think they're supposed to be something else and then like come back to it later in life. And so when you are able to give kids permission to be who they are from day one, it's like one of the biggest gifts we can give them, especially if they have a design very different than you. So I think in looking at my daughter's chart, which we did within 12 minutes of her being born, I think that what I saw first is like, I didn't go into like this rabbit hole where I was like, I need to understand all these pieces. I was just like, noted, you know, like, okay, I see these pieces, very interesting, very rare chart, like what's going on here. But I think what I saw immediately was that like, this baby girl is like not at all like me through the human design lens. And so I think from the beginning, I had no expectation that she would at all be like me. And so when I know her chart now, it doesn't change the way that I'm engaging with her at all, but it is a lens through which I'm observing her. And so I'm watching these things, like she's got a piece of her design where like, basically her energy is very impactful. Like she walks into a room and like she's very felt, whereas some of us just take a lot in. She's like pouring it out, and like it is so wild being in the world with her because like she is just like, she is in love with her environment, and people just are really moved by her in ways that are so striking. And so I think that as a parent, like I love knowing her design, but like I'm just gonna like let it play out because I feel like my job is to just let her become. And I think human design is a really great tool to let her become in a way that feels authentic to her and not in a way that like I want her to be or want her to like follow a similar path to me. So I think it can be an amazing tool, but I think you're right that it's not a thing where I want to walk in and be like, okay, I'm gonna ask all these questions. I'm like, I'm just gonna watch it and see what happens. But like I would say as a manifester, you know, these kids are often like born leaders. Like they just kind of like know what they want and who they are, and like they're kind of they're like people that thrive with a lot of freedom and autonomy, like which is obviously not totally feasible as a baby, soon to be toddler. And so, you know, if it does feel like a thing you want to play with, it might be a thing where it's like there's a day a week where it's like he gets to call the shots and like you just follow his lead. So like there's just like little ways to be like, let me just play with this and see what happens. You know, because manifestors often don't like to be told what to do. So finding ways to, you know, create boundaries while also creating freedom.
I got so when you get a report from Erin, these amazing, how would you describe that page with the words on?
Oh, it's like a summary of all the parts of your design. It's like a manifesto about you.
I'd like that manifesto about you because it is so powerful.
Yeah.
I need to frame that, put that on my wall, put it on my fridge, put it everywhere. Like
totally.
Just as a constant reminder.
Yeah.
But in there it said about my son that he is a trailblazer, an adventurer.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're not kidding me. Like he got stitches on New Year's Eve because he's just like throwing himself around willy-nilly.
Wow.
He like bananas back, and he's a super happy kid.
Yeah.
Like he knows what he wants and he tells you when he wants it.
Yeah.
But I think that was what I realized through this process and eventually looking up his chart, because actually the biggest intention I have as his mother is to just almost be I don't know what word you put on it, shepherd is the word that comes to mind, and just allow him to be who he wants to be.
Yeah.
And actually, I realized this wasn't a putting him in boxes and saying, well, you're going to be like this because you're this. You're going to be like this because you're this. It was like a way of understanding him and allowing him to be in that expression even more.
100%. And also knowing that you're somebody who's here to be invited in as a projector. He's somebody who's here to just go after things. And so also being oh, how can I just encourage that and remind him how powerful he is. And one other example I think of with my daughter is that she's got a very strong will in her design, which basically means you can't get in her way. And I remember in one of my parent-child groups, one of the teachers was this is the most willful child I've ever interacted with. And I was so interesting you say that, so they're just it's fun to, I think, observe, because again, I do believe that without any guidance, kids are expressing their design so purely because it's just their authenticity. And so it just allows us to observe and just keep nurturing that.
I adore this.
Yeah.
So I feel the way that you talk about human design is very applicable. And I'd love to talk about, I feel we've kind of spoken about relationships and family. I'd like to dive into relationships a little bit more, actually. Yeah. So one thing that I discovered when Jake was a projector, I was we're a projector and a projector. Yeah. I was are we just never going to do anything? And I actually think this is a misconception about projectors. I think we're very productive. Yep. I'm constantly looking to you for reassurance as the actual expert in this. Yeah. But talk to me about how that projector-projector dynamic can work. And I want to explore these different, we've spoken about manifestors and projectors, generators and projectors. How does projector on projector work?
I think it can be really nice, in that there's a sense of often just resonance and understanding, or it's just you can just really get each other. And also as projectors, we have a tendency to be quite overzealous. And often generators and manifesting generators, they know when to stop. They use up their energy and they're I'm done. Whereas as projectors, we're should we keep going? Should we do another thing? We just we don't know when. And so I think with two projectors, you guys can really remind each other that it's okay to stop. And you guys can really have such a beautiful space of relaxing and unwinding and trying to just being really soft together. Because as you said, being a projector is not about being unproductive or ineffective or lazy. It's about using your energy in really smart and effective ways. It's about not pushing all day long, but really making things happen and then resting, and then really making things happen and then resting. And so I feel it is really, I feel you guys can just give each other a lot of permission to rest and to allow that in your life. And I would also say that if it ever feels there's a lack of energy in the home, which I don't know if you feel that, if you ever need inspiration, especially being breastfeeding, I feel going out together and kind of being out in the world and getting that inspiration is so big. And, I also been breastfeeding at home for the past year, and even just going on a plane and I'm I have so much energy. I'm just around so much. And I'm oh, I really haven't had that, So have you noticed that? The kind of wanting to go out?
Massively. I tried to take myself off to a hotel probably a week or two ago because I was I just need to get out and I just need to sit somewhere and be inspired. Yeah. And I mean, it was stressful because I'm breastfeeding, so it didn't quite play out the way I hoped it to, but I think it's one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to in the next year is getting to enjoy being a mother and getting to leave the house.
I've done it once and it was amazing. I was just wow, I can work out of home at it's just this is possible.
I can do anything.
Totally. Do you notice the projector qualities in your husband? Do you notice the ebb and flow of the energy and the leadership? Is that a thing that you see in him?
So I was shocked when I found out he was a projector. And that's why when I didn't have his bed, I kept checking the different times. I was no. I thought he'd for sure be a manifesting generator. But then now I see him through that lens. I've started to see it more. He's definitely very much a leader. Yeah. He enjoys working with leaders as well. Yeah. He's very good at big picture overviews. Yeah. Seeing the bird's eye view essentially. But I think, and I'll say this about him because he'll admit it and I'll admit it with him, what you were saying then about being overzealous, we are so guilty of. I remember going to my therapist, I think probably a year before we got married, and he was starting his business. I think I was starting my first business then as well. Yeah. And I was we don't have a weekend or an evening. And it's wild for me to think about now because we've come on so far from that, you know. We have our evenings, we have our weekends, they're so sacred, but we would just go and go and go.
Yeah.
And I saw him build this business and give out a lot of energy and go and go and go. And I was like, how are you a projector? Like, where is the 4 hours a day thing here?
Totally. Yeah.
So yeah, I now I can see it, but yeah.
And every projector is different, you know. It's like I don't like to be like you have to work 4 hours a day because like I definitely work more than that most days, you know. But it's more about kind of creating moments of pause within. And my experience as a projector is like when I really genuinely feel invited in and recognized, I have so much energy, you know. And so I'm just like learning to just like let me just check in with myself and make sure that like I'm pausing when my body's calling for it, and then working when the inspiration's there, you know. And there are moments where there's a lot of it, and the moments when I really need rest. So I think, and also being around others that are lit up by their work gives us so much energy as projectors. So also if he's working with like a lot of leaders and he's really, and they're excited, like he's probably going to be like over the moon excited. But I do think as projectors, the big piece is not forcing ourselves to be consistently productive, and to just check in with ourselves every so often to make sure that if we need rest, we're taking it. Because my experience also as a projector is that when I'm not resting, it's really hard to connect to my gifts. And I feel like the most insightful and intuitive and helpful when I'm resting.
So talk me through, I feel like knowing I'm a projector has shifted the way that I work.
Yeah.
Massively. I used to do back-to-back coaching calls throughout the day and then run amazing calls but be so depleted. It was like you had to scoop me up off the floor. So I feel like I've shifted a lot in terms of my schedule's pretty empty most of the time, in all honesty. But I still feel like there's a lot of room for improvement for me, how to live in alignment with my design. And I think this is something I love about you as well. You're such an amazing example to me of a projector running this incredibly successful business and doing it in alignment with your energy. So can you talk me through, like, what's a typical day? How does a typical day play out for you?
Yeah, well, it's changing a lot. I will say that in the fall of last year, I like found myself teaching like for many hours a week. I had like cut down private sessions, and I always kind of go to the edge, go beyond it, and then I'm like, too much, you know, pull back. And so like I think that, and that was too much for me. I was teaching many hours and I was like, oh, I've reached the point where it's too many. I need to cut it down. And so I did. And so I think I'm always just checking in with myself. I think that I usually, I mean, when I first started my business, like I had sessions every day. I would fit it into every pocket of time that I had. And that is like, you know, now it's like if I do sessions, there are 3 blocks, like 3 sessions, 1 day a week, and I can only do that. You know, I have 1 day that I do podcasts. I have like 2 days that are totally open, and like usually 1 day that I teach. And so I just try to keep things really contained, and working on something really big, which you know about yet, but I haven't shared yet. And so now I'm like clearing my whole schedule, which has been really cool. But I will say as a projector, like I do best with lots of open space. And so like I am just always trying to find my way back to that. And I'm also really just always reflecting on like, what are the things that I can do in the business that are really high impact and high value? And what are the things that I can do that like just aren't really necessary to be done by me anymore? And that like, and so I think that that's been a big piece recently of just like really letting go of control in a lot of different ways, because there are a lot of things that I'm still involved in that like, I'm not necessary anymore. Like I'm not really making that much of a difference. And so giving myself permission to like really let go. So yeah, I think that and I will just say as a projector, it's really important to really hone in, well, 2 pieces, and I know this is a long answer, is like really hone in on like the parts of the business that you're really, really best at, and when possible, just doing that and eventually delegating the rest, which is not always feasible immediately. And for me, it's like teaching and writing about human design. So when I find myself in a lot of marketing and sales, like I'm not great at that. And also like it really depletes my energy in a way that teaching and writing does not. And then I think another piece that I would share is that it's been important for us to build a business that isn't dependent on me working more and more and more. You know, when I first did sessions, the scale required more sessions, and I just like, it burnt me out. And so that was where the blueprint guide came into existence of like, how can we impact more people without me doing more and more every single day, and maybe doing a ton at the beginning and then allowing it to grow. So that's also been a big piece of our offerings, is like a lot of them don't require me anymore, even though they used to require me so much.
I got an actual like full body thrill when you spoke about how you were clearing your diary.
I know. I'm like, look at my schedule. I'm like, oh my God.
Like I get genuinely like, ooh,
Totally.
excited. Like
Totally.
it's a great feeling, and it's not. And I'm seeing this as a kind of reflective point where it's not like I'm not going to do anything in that time, but it's just the freedom.
Totally.
It feels like the creativity rushes in, the energy rushes in. Just
totally.
Yeah.
And also it's interesting because as projectors, our energy naturally ebbs and flows. And like when I have so much on my schedule, like I don't get to honor that as much because I have a lot of commitments and that's inevitable. But when I have a day that's really open, it feels like I can really like go with the flow where it's like, oh, I'm like really inspired in the morning and then I like will go for a walk and then it will come back. And so I feel like I'm able to honor my energy more naturally in a way that ultimately makes me so much more effective.
I adore this.
Yeah.
I've noticed personally as well, I have a manifesting generator who's like my right-hand woman in my business. And our dynamic works really, really well together.
Yeah.
And I have to give her kudos for this question because I was saying that I was interviewing today and I was like, do you have any like burning questions? Like, what would you love to know? And one of her questions was, if you could create a kind of dream team based on human design, who would be in what role? Like, what designs would work together? How would that interact?
Oh my gosh, I mean, there's so many pieces. Like, I hate to be, I like don't like being like, there's only one team, you know, but I think that like, I would say, like looking at your design, it feels like you are somebody that is meant to kind of be very much in the front, just like kind of sharing and teaching and speaking. And like, you've got a real gift for like getting things out into the world in a big way. But like, I think you would benefit most, and maybe this is your right hand, like having somebody that just like is juicing it all up in the back, you know, in terms of like really like helping get all the resources and even helping clarify the vision and kind of like allowing you to be like a creative out there sharing. And it's funny, you and I share a gift in our human design. It's called the gift of ambition. I think you maybe read about it in your blueprint, which means that like you're very driven, to like be successful and even make money and do really well, but like you just aren't here to do it alone. And like you're really susceptible to burnout because there's such a temptation to do it all alone, but like you are the most successful when you have the right allies around you. And so I would say that you probably most benefit from some generators and manifesting generators around you. There's like one particular channel that you would really benefit from having around you. But I think people that just like honestly handle all the things in a way that kind of allows you to just like move with your creativity and kind of be out there sharing and teaching and speaking.
What's the channel that I need?
So without getting too into the, you know, all the details, there are, when you are building a team, there are kind of 12 core pieces you want to look at. And so when I do team sessions, I look at like, where are the gaps? What are the things that aren't there? Of those 12, there are like 4 ones that are the most important. And it's like the spine of the business. You carry 2 of those. And that's like sales and getting a thing out into the world in a big way. The things that you could most benefit from is a channel called the 214. And it basically is somebody that kind of like helps attract all these like resources and people and like kind of helps have a real strategic vision on like where things are going. It doesn't always mean that like they're going to have the vision. Them being around could just like bring the vision out in you, but like they can kind of like help direct in a way that kind of allows you to just like express and then bring that thing out.
This is so interesting.
Yeah.
And when I think about the different human designs, and I'd be interested, because I know from a projective perspective, I'd love to hear the different energy types, how this works. Something I noticed bringing it back to business is I can see other people's businesses very clearly.
Yeah.
So if someone brings me a business and it's something that they're struggling with, it's like a jigsaw puzzle and all the pieces are all over the place. And I feel like I can put the piece, I know where they need to put the pieces and then it'll make this beautiful picture. So if that's like a projector energy, what's the manifesting generator? What's the generator reflector? How are they seeing things?
Like in terms of working with people or within a business?
Both.
I think that reflectors are just really good at sitting back, looking at the whole picture, seeing what's not working, and letting us know what we can do to like facilitate progress. And so when they're in a role, whether it's as a facilitator or within a business, where like their gift is their perspective, and then like that's when they thrive. Because reflectors are inconsistent by nature, and maybe that's a word that doesn't feel good to some, but what I mean by that is like, You might have days where you're on fire and days where you've got to rest, weeks where you can make more happen than anyone else, and then weeks where you've got to just be a recluse. And so, like, the more you flow with that, the more successful you'll be. I think manifesting generators as coaches can really amp people up. You know, like they can get them so excited. They can like make them believe anything's possible. Like I leave my time with manifesting generators feeling like so buzzy and I'm like, I can do anything, you know? And then within a business, like they bring so much energy and power and juice and can just like bring things to happen, bring things to life so fast. Like you might mention an idea and like they just make it happen the next day and you're like, oh my God. But it's so important for them within a business to feel the freedom to like keep things exciting and new and ever evolving.
Yeah.
You know, generators also can really like juice you up. You know, they can really just like give you so much energy, light you up, make you feel so excited. And depending on their gifts, you know, I think that it's so unique to them. But within a business, I would say they bring a lot of consistent energy in bringing an idea to life in terms of like mastering the step-by-step process and actually like bringing ideas to life, which is why I think having that energy in your business is so helpful in a way that I think allows you perhaps more freedom. And then manifestors, you know, it's funny, they're not often coaches that would want to come in and work with you in a long-term kind of way. They often want to come in, like spark and transform everything and then walk away. You know, they're like exactly, mic drop and I'm out. And then I think in a business, they're the ones that thrive when their role is innovating, when they get to bring new ideas to life, but their role is not sustaining everything they start, but starting a thing and then having someone else help.
I am so sold on human design as like just a tool for life, for business, relationships, everything. But I'm really curious because listening to you talk about this, particularly the way that you apply it, it's quite strategic, you know, and it feels very applicable.
Yes.
Do you often work with skeptics or, you know, teams that are like, what is this woo-woo stuff? And then what does that journey kind of look like?
Yeah, I mean, I do. And I came from a startup background. And so the first human design business I started in 2015 was focused exclusively on how to bring human design to business, which was a little bit early for that. But now I worked with a lot of businesses, and I think I've really gone through quite an evolution in how I talk about human design. I think when I first discovered it, I was like, this is the coolest. This is like the truth. I can't wait to share it. And now I share it in a much less dogmatic way. I think my approach and our approach as a business is it doesn't matter whether it's true. What matters is whether it's useful. And so when I work with skeptics, that's the framing. It's like, this is an amazing tool, but it's also just that, a tool. So like what's important to me is like, if it's useful and like at the very least, let it spark a conversation around how you operate, you know, whether or not you resonate. That said, I think like most people I work with, 99.9% are like, this is so useful, but I think it's important to give people that choice. And so I don't present it as truth. I present it as a framework to look at and reflect on. And my experience is that it's such a more gentle way of doing that, of exploring the system. Because if you're a skeptic and somebody walks in and they're like, you are this, it just doesn't feel great. But if somebody's like, human design says this about you, how does that feel? Like, does that resonate? How would you change it? It just gives people a lot more agency. And so working with skeptics is definitely one of my favorite things because I think human design is so specific and, like you said, so strategic and so tactical that it has the capacity to resonate with a really wide audience. And I can't tell you how many skeptics I've worked with that like, or even like recently I had a partnership session and like this woman dragged her husband in and he was so pissed. He did not want to be there, you know? And I was just like, okay. And it was so fun because like he was so reticent, but he was like, okay, tell me more. Like, what's your approach? Let's get into it. And then he booked like 4 more sessions. And now he's booking a session every month because he's just like, he buys into like, he's like, this is so crazy to me and it's also so useful. And because it's useful, I'm going to invest in it. And so, yeah, I think that like, but that's my approach. And many human design people have a very different approach. I don't really take a very spiritual approach with human design. I take a very pragmatic approach. And that's just the way that I do it.
When you said you love working with skeptics, I had this image of you as like the converter.
I know, I like had some real satisfaction from working with skeptics. I don't know what it is, you know, but it's because I know how useful it can be. And I just feel like in all the systems that are out there, I feel like human design can be like the first step to like other systems. Like I feel like if somebody is curious to learn how they work, then like human design can be an amazing tool for them as long as it's presented in the right way.
Yeah.
In a more open way.
And you mentioned then as well about how you started it through business and through startups and you were very much at the forefront with that. I'm really curious because I do feel like there has been this blowing up of human design where more and more people are aware and they know their design. I was saying to you, I think before we start recording, like I don't get many strange looks anymore when I'm like, what's your design? Like people know what you're talking about. How has it been as a businesswoman navigating that transition and that shift from this thing that you've got to explain to everyone and no one really knows what it is to people know what it is now?
Yeah, it's been a lot of things. You know, I think that in most ways it's been incredibly exciting because like I never got into human design to build a business, you know, like I was obsessed with the knowledge it offered. And I just wanted to share it. And it was just so fringe when I started. And there's so many cool systems that like are really fringe still. Like I did not know that human design would take off. I thought it might, but I had no idea. And I actually walked away from human design in 2017 because I couldn't build a business to sustain myself. And so I was like, I know that there's so much gold in the system, but I can't force people to be ready for it. And then people were ready. So I think it's been really, really exciting because I think it's grown. I worked with more people than I could have ever imagined. Like you said, like I watch people that are like so skeptical be like, human design has changed my life. And I'm like, it is just so amazing that like human design is having a moment to really impact people because I think it is the most transformative system I've personally found. So it feels very exciting. And it's also been an interesting journey for me because I think that so much of my design, a little bit of yours too, is like about being on the cutting edge of things. And like, it's not really cutting edge anymore. You know, like it's like, so it's just been also interesting for me of being like, this is still so exciting, but also like it's more mainstream and like, what is my role now? You know, and so it's also been interesting for me to just kind of like explore how I want to navigate my own relationship to human design. And I think now I'm just like super pumped about like really bringing it to the mainstream because like even though it feels like people are talking about it, we're still within certain worlds that like where that's normal to talk about things like this. And like there's just still so many people that don't know about it. And so now I'm just like, how can we like really get it to them? So it's been interesting and it's been amazing and it's been unexpected. And I think this is such a tangent. I don't know what you felt about like your first year postpartum. I know you're not totally all the way through yet, but I think something that really felt true for me is that I just did not want to do things the way I'd always done them.
Yeah.
And like things that once felt exciting felt boring.
Yeah.
And like, and so I think that that was a big struggle where it's like, I used to love doing things this way and now I don't. And so I think what's felt really exciting is that I'm getting to use my energy in lots of new ways, actually within the world of human design. And I realized like that's all I needed is I just like needed to change the way that I was showing up to it. So it's been really interesting walking that path.
Those words were such healing balm for me. I had this weird feeling before this conversation. I was like, I feel like I just need this conversation anyway. And postpartum, I mean, it's a whole... I've been through so many deaths and rebirths. You know, I was in corporate previously. I had a food business. It has been the biggest death and rebirth.
Yeah.
And that's coming from someone who literally had a nervous breakdown in corporate and like changed my entire life. It has been the biggest death and rebirth. And I think you described it so well then. It is just that energy of the things that I wanted to do before. I don't want to do them in the same way. And it's been really interesting to navigate as well. Previously, and I'm interested in this as well because I have the projector, but I have Capricorn. So I'm very like Capricorn energy. But for one of the first times in my life, I just couldn't force myself to do something. And it was so strange because if you'd asked me before, I would have said my life was in complete alignment. I would have said, I'm living my best life. Everything feels so aligned. Everything feels so in flow. And then I had a baby and this new level of awareness came through and I was like, whoa, actually, that's been draining my energy. This has been taking too much of me. I've been giving too much of myself here. And I suddenly saw it all and I couldn't force myself to do it anymore.
I know. It's like, so I think that, and that's why it's been so nice to be part of this group of women because I feel like it's so easy to feel like this is so unique to us and it's not. And like, and I so feel that. And I feel that with so many moms I've talked to where it's like, they just aren't tolerant of things that like, again, and even things like they were exciting before, but like we are reborn when we give birth too. And like, and I think it's only in the last month that I was like, oh, like I wanted to, like, I feel like I'm growing so much as a mother. And I feel like this past year has reminded me that like, there's so many ways I want to grow in my work and as an entrepreneur and as a writer. And so like, I think that like I needed that. And when that wasn't there, it was just like, why am I doing what I'm doing? So I think that like finding those areas of growth across my life have been really important.
So is that how you feel that you've navigated it? Has it been finding those areas of growth? Has it been the different approach? Is that the way that it's kind of reignited the fire for you?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say it was like super strategic. I think a lot of last year felt really crunchy for a lot of people, you know? It was just like, I don't know, it was just an interesting year. It felt like we were just kind of like re-looking at everything because I think as parents, we have a new perspective and then like inevitably that translated to our business. And then I think at the end of last year, just like it all became very clear. And I was like, oh, like this is where we're going and this is the newness. So I don't think it was like even me working towards it, but me just acknowledging the crunchiness of like, it's interesting that this thing that once felt good no longer does. And like, and I don't think that me putting my energy there anymore, I don't think it makes sense to do that. So I don't think it made sense until I was on the other side. But I think that like, it's not, I just realized, I was like, oh, I was just like craving something really new. And like I said, part of my design and part of yours, that creativity piece is like, you're here to like feel so creatively expressed in your work. And like what once felt like a creatively juicy thing is probably not going to feel creatively juicy a year from now.
Yeah.
And so there has to be this constant inquiry and investigation and like what feels the most authentic to me right now. And it is inevitable as a new mom that like authenticity now is so different than it was a year ago, you know? And so like I would say in your business and life, always being guided by like what feels like creative, what feels fun, like where is the inspiration, like what feels exciting. And like so much of your design is like keeping things fresh and like not keeping things like stagnant or routine or like the way you've always done them.
Love this. So with that, I want to know, you said earlier about like you don't see it as human design being like gospel, like there's some looseness around it. Well, I see the blueprint as my new Bible.
I'll take it. Yeah.
I said this to you. I was like, I'm putting this on my bedside table. I'm going to read it every night, read it every morning. It is that permission slip. And I actually remember I got my mum a human design reading a couple of years ago now. And I remember afterwards, I wasn't sure how it was going to land for her. She's super interested in this kind of stuff. But I wasn't sure how it's going to land for her. And she said that very thing. She said, and I can't remember her exact age when I gave her this reading, but she was in her 60s. And she said, my whole life I've been told that these things that are wrong about myself are wrong. And it was one of these like first times where it was like, oh my God, no, this is just who I am. She said she made me feel like the things I thought were weaknesses were strengths.
Totally.
And I thought that was so beautiful. And I think that's why I think it's such a Bible to have this blueprint, to have this guide, to come back to yourself, to remind yourself. And particularly for me, I have an undefined head, and I definitely feel that if I'm taking in too much, I start to lose sense of who I am. It's also why I can't follow loads of people on Instagram. This is a thing for me. And I get in trouble for it, but I can't, I find it so confusing to be.
I can imagine. And also like your way of making decisions in human design is like the absolute quietest. And so like if there's any kind of noise, it's going to be hard for you to actually connect to your instincts of like what you actually want to do.
This also explains why earlier when Jake came into my office and was asking me to make a decision, and there was Leo, he was like crying or screaming or music playing, and there was something else, and I was like, I can't answer a question right now.
Totally.
It's too much. But this is why I think it is so incredible to just to have it there and to have it as that powerful reminder to truly be who you are. So everyone needs the blueprint.
I do agree with that.
That said. So they've downloaded your blueprint. They've got this amazing guide. They've got this incredible page that you can print out, put it on your wall, stick on your. I literally want that page everywhere. Phone screen background, everything. What are 3 ways that they can start to upgrade their life by using this blueprint to shift the way that they show up to the world?
Yeah. Well, I think the best part of human design is it's so specific. So can I give you yours?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I would look at, if you're going to start anywhere, I would look at actually your strategy, authority, and profile.
Okay.
As like 3 tools. And so as a projector, your strategy is to be invited. And so one way to, I would say, upgrade your life is to consider where in your life you feel the most recognized and genuinely seen, and really pour your energy in those places. And also recognize places where perhaps you want to be seen but you're not seen, and let go of those places. Because again, the more seen we feel, the more energized we feel. And so just really conserving your energy and being so ruthless about where you put it. As a splenic authority, also known as tune into your intuition, I would say with decision making, one way for you would be having a moment of quiet every day. Your authority, your clarity comes alive in silence. And so just giving yourself some space to just get out just let go of the noise and the input and the ideas and the opinions, and just see what arises within you.
Would that be like meditation, sitting meditation?
It could be going on a walk. It could be turning off your phone. It could be dancing. It could be doing Kundalini. Like anything that feels like it quiets you, and like gives you a little bit of space to be with yourself.
I love this.
And then I think the other one, you're a 4-6 profile. And so I would say with a 4, and I feel like you do a good job of this, would be just really nurturing your community. Like your opportunities are very much meant to come through your friends and the people that you know. And aligned opportunities come from an aligned community. And so just, again, always taking inventory and really kind of evolving your community as you do.
I find that so interesting. I actually got told that for the first time a couple of years ago. And I found it wild because I was like, no, my friends, and was very like, no, it's not. There's opportunities through friends just like rubbed on me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And actually, the more I've like let that land and let that settle, I'm like, oh, it's not like a force thing. It's not like you're trying to force something. It's like who is naturally in your world,
exactly,
where you've got those natural connections, and then what's like a natural step that comes from that.
Totally. And that's such an important distinction, because it's not choosing people because of the opportunities you think they may bring you. It's choosing people because you really like them. And then like just seeing what happens over time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it is so specific, but I think, and you can download the summary that you're talking about. You can download for free on the website. And then
that is so generous of
we
you.
just did that. And then the guide goes into all the things. But if you want just your thing, your page, you can download that. And also it might be nice, that's a really great way to upgrade your life, is just put it on your fridge and read it every day and be like, yes, I'm designed to be these things.
Yes. It's literally, just go download it, guys.
Yeah.
It's literally like you are a bad bitch energy.
Yeah.
Just first thing in the morning. Amazing. Well, we're going to wrap up this part and then we'll see you in the wind down.